Imagine building just a massive trillion-dollar corporate empire using a blueprint that your biggest rival posted on the internet for free.
Right.
I mean, that is exactly what is happening right now in the AI arms race. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, it really sounds like corporate fiction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it is literally the foundation of the modern tech economy.
It is. And our mission today is to take this massive, kind of chaotic tech timeline and distill it into something clear for you. We are using a brilliant long-form essay from the June 7, 2026 issue of Tech Reader magazine. It's by Aaron Rose, and it's called From One Paper, The Parallel Rise of OpenAI and Anthropic.
And the central irony that Rose points out in this piece is just, it's staggering.
It really is. I mean, think about the landscape you navigate today, right? It's completely dominated by OpenAI and Anthropic. We are talking about two behemoths that are eyeing public listings with valuations in the hundreds of billions.
Oh, easily. Pushing $1 trillion, actually.
Yeah. Exactly. Pushing $1 trillion. And yet, this entire ecosystem, the technology powering, everything from your automated emails at work to global supply chains, it all stems entirely from a single 8-page paper.
Right.
Published in 2017 by 8 researchers at Google.
Titled Attention is All You Need, which introduced the transformer architecture.
Right. And outside of a very niche academic circle, absolutely nobody cared when it dropped.
Yeah, nobody was paying attention, no pun intended.
Right. But we have to understand this timeline because it's kind of the skeleton key. It explains why AI behaves the way it does for you today and why certain companies are winning. So I want to start by dissecting that 2017 paper, because people hear the word transformer and they think of the movies.
Sure.
What actually was this breakthrough?
So to understand the transformer, you kind of have to look at what came before it. Before 2017, language models read text sequentially, like a human reading a book.
Like word by word, left to right.
Exactly, word by word. And that creates a massive bottleneck. Because if you're analyzing a really long paragraph, by the time the model gets to the end, it sort of forgets the context of the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was slow and
Yeah.
incredibly hard to scale up. But the 2017 paper introduced the attention mechanism. So instead of reading linearly, a transformer looks at every single word in a data set simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Wait, so it's not reading left to right at all anymore.
Right. It assigns mathematical weights or, attention to how every word relates to every other word, instantly capturing the context.
So it basically unlocked parallel processing for language.
Precisely. And because you could process all the data simultaneously rather than sequentially, you could suddenly throw just massive amounts of computing power at the problem. The bottleneck was completely gone.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that brings us to the reality of what it took to actually build on that Google architecture. Let's wind the clock back slightly to December 2015. OpenAI is founded, but it is not a tech giant. It's a 501c3 nonprofit research lab.
Which is so funny to think about now.
Right. They have a $1 billion pledge from various tech luminaries, and their stated mission is to ensure that AGI, artificial general intelligence, benefits humanity broadly. Not a single corporate entity, but everyone.
Yeah, their early work is just pure research. Like, they build reinforcement learning systems that play the video game Dota 2 at superhuman levels.
Which is very cool, but, not exactly a consumer revolution.
No, not at all. But then Google publishes that transformer paper in 2017, and OpenAI looks at it and realizes, oh, this is the vehicle to reach our AGI goals.
And they start building the GPT series. In 2018, we get GPT-1 with 117 million parameters. Let's pause there, actually, because we hear the word parameters thrown around constantly.
All the time, yeah.
How should we visualize that?
Think of a parameter kind of like a synapse in a human brain. It's a connection point. When a model trains on data, it adjusts the strength of these billions of connections to understand patterns.
Okay, that makes sense.
So more parameters generally mean a more nuanced, capable model, provided, of course, that you have the data and the compute power to actually train it.
So 117 million was a really big deal in 2018. But then in February 2019, they jumped to GPT-2, and that has 1.5 billion parameters.
A massive leap.
And the output is suddenly highly fluent. It can write cohesive paragraphs. But then OpenAI does something that completely fractures the tech community. They refuse to release the full model.
Right. Yeah.
They claim they're terrified it could be used to generate mass misinformation at scale.
It was a wildly controversial move at the time. I mean, critics accused them of using safety concerns as a PR stunt to build hype.
I mean, I kind of have to push back on their logic here. Wait, so OpenAI was founded specifically as a nonprofit to prevent AI monopolies, right?
Right.
But it feels like inventing a revolutionary new engine and then refusing to sell it because you're worried someone might drive over the speed limit. You are a research lab. Isn't your job to publish research?
Well, what's fascinating here is the counter-argument. This
Huh?
wasn't just a faster engine. It was an entirely new class of technology with zero existing guardrails.
Okay.
So OpenAI's stance was that the deployment of AI needed to be staggered so society could adapt.
Yeah.
But you're right to point out that friction, because that internal debate safety versus deployment, is the fault line that eventually tears the whole company apart.
And that fault line gets a lot of stress placed on it financially, too, because right around this same time, early 2019, OpenAI executes a structural pivot. And frankly, it still confuses people.
Oh, absolutely.
They're a nonprofit. But suddenly, they create a capped profit model, OpenAI LP, with a 100x cap,
Yeah.
meaning investors can earn up to 100 times their initial investment. So if I put in 10 million, I can pull out $1 billion, and anything over that goes back to the nonprofit. Doesn't that immediately compromise the original mission? You go from saving humanity to chasing a 100x return.
It looks totally hypocritical on paper.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, look at the physics of the technology we just discussed. Once the transformer unlocked parallel processing, the only limit to how smart the AI could get was how much compute you could feed it.
Right. The brute force aspect?
Exactly. Training these models stopped being a clever software problem and became a brute force infrastructure problem. You needed tens of thousands of specialized GPUs running for months.
Which costs tens, eventually hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hundreds of millions. And a traditional 501c3 nonprofit simply cannot fund those server costs through philanthropic donations alone. So to get the massive venture capital required to buy the compute, they had to offer a return on investment.
So the capped profit structure was basically their attempt to thread the needle.
Yes. Attract Wall Street money, but legally subordinate that profit motive to the nonprofit board's mission.
It's a weird legal structure, though, and it sets the stage for a major breaking point. Because as we move into May 2020, OpenAI drops GPT-3, and the scale jumps from 1.5 billion parameters in GPT-2 to 175 billion in GPT-3.
Yeah, more than a 100x increase.
It's wild. It can write essays, answer complex questions, and write functioning code just by looking at a few examples.
And what's key here is that it proved definitively that simply scaling up a transformer model unlocked emerging capabilities, things that nobody explicitly programmed into it.
So the developer community just loses its mind, and the money aggressively follows. In July 2020, Microsoft sweeps in. They invest $1 billion, securing an exclusive licensing agreement and giving OpenAI the Azure compute access they desperately need.
Which is huge.
But this influx of corporate pressure triggers the Great Schism. Spring 2021, Dario Amodei, the VP of Research, Daniela Amodei, the VP of Operations, and 9 other core researchers just walk out the door.
11 people instrumental in building the technology just leave.
It's crazy.
The ideological tension finally snapped. The faction that left fed the Microsoft deal and the sheer pressure to commercialize were overriding the safety mandate.
So by May 2021, this group forms Anthropic. They incorporate as a public benefit corporation, focusing heavily on AI safety, and they raise $124 million from investors, including Eric Schmidt.
Right.
And they start building their own large language model. Now, I look at this and I see a grassroots indie band suddenly signing a massive, exclusive 360 deal with a corporate record label.
That's a great analogy.
But wait. If Anthropic was started by the exact same people who built OpenAI's tech, using the exact same transformer architecture, weren't they just building a clone company?
Well, from a purely technical standpoint at day one, the underlying math was similar. But Anthropic wasn't building a clone. They were building an entirely different corporate and philosophical framework.
Because of the public benefit corporation thing.
Exactly. Incorporating as a PBC changes their fiduciary duty. In a normal corporation, the board can be sued by shareholders if they don't maximize profit.
Right, the classic Wall Street rule.
But Anthropic's PBC structure legally mandates that the company weighs social impact and public benefit equally with profit. It structurally protects the leadership if they choose to delay a release for safety reasons, even if it costs them market share.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's look at how those different legal philosophies actually manifested in the code that took over the world. We are in 2022 now. OpenAI is refining GPT-3 into GPT 3.5 using a process called RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Which is incredibly labor-intensive.
Very. They literally have thousands of human contractors reading the AI's outputs and rating them. They are essentially saying, this response is helpful, this one is toxic, this one is hallucinated. They are manually steering the model's behavior.
It's essentially having a human traffic cop at every single intersection directing the flow of the AI's logic. It works, but it scales terribly. You just can't hire enough humans to review the sheer volume of data.
Right. It's like training a dog with treats, basically, rewarding good behavior.
Exactly.
But over at Anthropic, they tackle this scale problem by releasing something called constitutional AI in 2022. They removed the human traffic cops. Instead, they give the model a written set of principles, a constitution.
Yeah, the mechanism is wild.
It really is. The model generates a response. It then reads its own constitution, which might say, choose the response that is least harmful or biased. And then the model critiques its own response against that rule, rewrites it, and updates its own weights.
Right. If RLHF is a judge having to rule on every single minor dispute, constitutional AI is like drafting a clear set of laws.
So the dog has a rule book and governs itself.
Exactly. The AI makes autonomous rulings that align with the founder's intent without needing constant supervision. It's vastly more efficient for scaling safety.
But while Anthropic is busy writing constitutional law for neural nets, OpenAI lights the match that basically burns down the old internet. November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT drops.
Yeah, the day everything changed.
The numbers are still hard to comprehend. 1 million users in 5 days. 100 million users in 2 months. I mean, it crushed Instagram's 2.5 years and TikTok's 9 months.
It was the fastest adoption of a consumer technology in human history.
But let's be analytical here for a second. Did ChatGPT actually represent a massive leap in underlying technology? Or did OpenAI just win because they put a wildly simple text box over existing tech?
What's fascinating here is that the interface was the revolution. The underlying model, GPT 3.5, was an incremental improvement. But before ChatGPT, interacting with these models required using an API or a clunky developer playground.
It felt like coding.
Exactly. It felt like work. By wrapping it in a simple conversational interface that mimicked a text message, OpenAI removed all friction. Putting a capable model in front of anyone with an internet connection proved that the latent consumer demand for AI was virtually limitless.
Which officially kicks off the public AI era and a massive global arms race. So we move into 2023 and 2024. Microsoft sees this adoption and just doubles down. A $10 billion investment in OpenAI.
Yeah, $10 billion.
And everyone else panics. Legacy tech giants, international labs, everyone is scrambling. Google rushes out Bard, which is now Gemini. And the volatility of this new market is exposed instantly.
Wow. The Bard demo.
Yes. In their promotional video on Twitter, Bard answers an astronomy question about the James Webb Space Telescope incorrectly.
A classic hallucination.
A highly visible hallucination. It's like tripping on your shoelaces at the starting line of the Olympics. Alphabet's stock tanked roughly 7% the very next day.
Which is just a massive wipeout.
Over $100 billion in market cap gone because a chatbot gave one wrong answer in an ad.
But, it perfectly illustrates why Anthropic was so obsessed with safety and accuracy. In this sector, reputational risk translates instantly to massive financial destruction. Enterprise clients watched that Google fumble and realized they couldn't risk deploying an unpredictable model to their own customers.
Meanwhile, Anthropic drops the Claude 3 family, Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. And Claude 3 Opus actually outperforms GPT-4 on graduate-level reasoning and coding benchmarks.
Right. They proved they could compete on raw intelligence, not just safety.
OpenAI counters, of course, with GPT-4o, bringing in real-time voice and vision. But then, late 2024 throws a massive global wildcard into the mix. A Chinese lab called DeepSeek drops a model that matches Western performance.
And the shockwave wasn't just that they matched the performance, it was the cost.
Right, because they trained it for a fraction of what OpenAI and Anthropic were spending. Western labs were justifying these massive valuations by pointing to their multi-billion-dollar server farms. But if an overseas lab can match billions of dollars of American R&D for pennies on the dollar, I have to ask, is the moat for OpenAI and Anthropic actually just an illusion?
This raises an important question, and honestly, it completely destabilized the venture capital thesis at the time.
I bet.
DeepSeek proved that the leading position in AI capability is highly unstable. A massive war chest does not guarantee a permanent technical advantage. Raw talent and algorithmic efficiency can actually undercut brute force.
So if the core tech is becoming easier and cheaper to replicate, the battleground has to shift. The models are commoditizing. And that brings us to 2025 and 2026.
Right, the enterprise shift.
Exactly. The race moves from who has the smartest chatbot to who can capture the most lucrative markets, enterprise and agents.
Which is where the real money is. Integrating AI deep into corporate workflows, legal analysis, supply chain logistics.
So on the consumer side, OpenAI completely retains the crown with ChatGPT. Ask anyone on the street to name an AI, they say ChatGPT. But behind closed doors, Anthropic quietly wins the enterprise sector.
Yeah, it really did.
Massive organizations, global banks, healthcare conglomerates, companies with heavy compliance fears, they flock to Anthropic. They look at Claude's safety training and extended reasoning, and they buy in.
And crucially, this is when we see the technology fundamentally evolve. We enter the agentic era, the shift from chatbots to action takers.
Right. We move from chatbots that just generate text for you to read to agents that actually execute actions. Anthropic releases Claude Code, which autonomously reads and modifies massive enterprise software code bases. And OpenAI releases Operator, an agent designed to take over your web browser and navigate tasks autonomously.
It is the difference between consulting a very fast encyclopedia and hiring a digital intern who actually does the labor.
That's a great way to put it.
And for Fortune 500 companies, the value of that is practically infinite.
So what does this all mean financially? Because the climax detailed in Aaron Rose's piece just warps reality. Early 2025, OpenAI raises $40 billion at a $300 billion valuation.
Unbelievable numbers.
By May 2026, they file a confidential draft with the SEC for a September IPO led by Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, all while somehow maintaining a 26% nonprofit equity stake.
Which is just a headache for anyone trying to price it.
A total nightmare. But then Anthropic closes a $65 billion Series H round, resulting in an astronomical valuation of $965 billion.
A single funding around the size of a small nation's GDP.
So I have to ask you, is Anthropic's near trillion-dollar valuation justified just because nervous corporate lawyers like their safety rails? Or is there something fundamentally better about their business model?
Well, the valuation reflects the belief that trust is the ultimate product in highly regulated industries.
To trust is the product.
Yeah, well, OpenAI undeniably won the cultural zeitgeist. Anthropic won the infrastructure of the Fortune 500. Investors clearly believe that owning the back-end workflows of the global economy is just far more valuable than owning a consumer chatbot.
It is an incredible synthesis of history and economics. When you zoom all the way out on this timeline, the grand irony that Aaron Rose highlights is inescapable. You have OpenAI and Anthropic, two sprawling empires boasting combined valuations well over $1 trillion, both rushing toward historic late 2026 IPOs, both fundamentally reshaping human labor, and yet neither of them invented the bedrock architecture they are selling. It all traces back to the Transformer, openly published on the internet by Google in 2017.
It's crucial context for you to carry forward as a listener. Because the next time you use ChatGPT to draft an email or Claude to analyze data, you are participating in a rivalry that escalated because 11 researchers walked out the door over a disagreement about how to build a safe future.
It is tech history unfolding right on your keyboard. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today. If the bedrock of the entire 2020s AI revolution, the technology generating trillions in market cap today, was an obscure, deeply technical 8-page paper published in 2017 that almost everyone ignored, what obscure, deeply technical 8-page paper is being presented at a conference today that will completely upend your world in 2035?